Joel Embiid slander has gone too far. While Team USA has been over in Paris dominating at the Olympics, Joel Embiid has been a little bit up and down, and people on social media have used it as an opportunity to continue to slander and hate on and degrade the game of Joel Embiid. Some of the stuff I've seen on social media is just ridiculous, and I've had enough of it, so we got to talk about it here on today's show. We'll also be getting to Nick Nurse had some comments to say about this 76ers roster, how he envisions the big three working together, what his plans are for some of the other rotation players like Ricky Council, Andre Drummond. So we'll get to that on the back half of today's show. First, though, here on the channel at Chat Sports, 76ers now did win the July sub battle among all the NBA channels. But so far in August, we're off to a little bit of a cold start. As you can see here, we're in fourth among the top 5 channels, NBA channels here at Chat Sports, just above the Heat Report, which I love to be above the Heat Report, don't get me wrong, but we won last month. And now we're sitting here in fourth. Are you kidding me? That is unacceptable. It's not going to fly. And guess what? I know Sixers fans are going to step up to the challenge, step up to the plate, and help us out, help us rise the ranks here at Chat Sports. Can we pick up 30, 40 subs, get up near the top right here on today's channel? We're going to be getting videos to you all year long, all season long. So at the end of the day, you're a winner because you get great, informative, entertaining content. So hit that sub button, and let's get right into it. So Embiid at the Olympics, his performance has sort of fueled some of this conversation online. I won't deny that he certainly hasn't been spectacular or his MVP level self at the Olympics. He's been up and down, and he started off pretty slow. Remember, he's never played international basketball at this level in his life, right? So he had to get used to the new rules, the different whistle that obviously he's not going to get at the Olympics that he does in the NBA, and just playing with a bunch of stars as opposed to where when he's, playing for the 76ers, he is the star player. He is the focal point of the offense. And you take a look at the group stage games that USA has played so far at the Olympics, which they've dominated in each of these 3 games. A little bit of a rough start in that first game against Serbia for Embiid, just 11 minutes. And he started that game and really didn't play much in the second half. 4 points, 2 rebounds, just 5 shot attempts, and then didn't play at all against South Sudan. It was a bad matchup. Steve Kerr said South Sudan doesn't really have traditional big men on the roster. They play more up and down, fast pace. So he thought it was a bad matchup for Embiid, which I can agree with in that sense. And then against Puerto Rico was a little bit better. I think you could even say he was their second best player in that game, right behind Anthony Edwards, who was just absolutely phenomenal. But 23 minutes, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 6 of 14, 1 of 4 from 3, including that half-court shot he took at the end when all the French fans were booing him because he didn't decide to play for France as well as 2 blocks. So some of the stuff I've been seeing, it's just ridiculous. I understand he's not playing his best basketball, and he's certainly not giving us a reason to, cheer him on, and he's allowing some of this stuff to happen, but I saw this from Colin Cowherd, and it really made me realize just how bad some of this Joel Embiid slander is getting. Cowherd said this about Joel Embiid. My eyes keep telling me this when I watch the Sixers. The Olympics just heightened this. Embiid really needs to stay closer to the basket. He fashions himself, or is told that he is such an important part of perimeter basketball. He's big, he's aging, and he is not as quick. Colin, have you watched any Sixers games over the past 2-3 seasons to say Joel Embiid shouldn't be playing on the perimeter and he should just be staying inside? I can agree that it's frustrating sometimes when he is settling for those mid-range jumpers constantly and not quite getting to the basket as much as I would like him to. But Joel Embiid dominates from the mid-range. And even this past season was very efficient from 3. He has a great handle for a player his size, and he can rise up and shoot over pretty much anybody, even double teams in the mid-range. You look at the last 3 seasons, right? 65% when he's less than 8 feet from the basket. That's tremendous, and I understand why you want him taking most of his shots there, and that's where he has taken most of his shots. But you start to get a little farther out, still shooting over 46% between 8 to 16 feet, and then, that long mid-range, 16 to 24, taking almost 500 of them the last 3 years, shooting almost 50%, and then he's shooting 36.6% from 3 over the past 3 seasons. So for Cowherd to come out and say that Joel Embiid should be playing solely inside, should be playing on the perimeter, and to say that he's thought that watching the Sixers the past few years, and that's only been, more emphasized at the Olympics, that's just absolutely ridiculous. Colin Cowherd continued on his rant against Joel Embiid, saying he's the most overhyped, coddled, and over-discussed player in the NBA. Jokic and Embiid on the floor at the same time, it is not close. They're not the same player. They're not remotely close to the same level of player. And look, when Team USA matched up against Serbia, Jokic had his way against pretty much anybody that was on the floor. But, man, I'm just so tired of this whole Embiid-Jokic thing. Like, they're both great players. Jokic obviously has the championship. He has all the MVPs. I hate the idea of just constantly comparing the two guys. Can't we just say they're both great basketball players and move on with it? Why does it always have to be Joel Embiid is never going to be what Jokic is? Joel Embiid can't carry a team to a championship like Jokic is. Why can't it just be Joel Embiid, it's one of the best players in basketball, and that's it? Why does it always have to be comparing him to the best player in basketball? I do not really understand. Cowherd continued saying, beyond padding his stats, Philadelphia keeps running coaches through Embiid and teammates through Embiid, and in the weaker Eastern Conference, he's yet to win a second-round playoff series. I'm not asking for much, just maybe one Eastern Conference Finals. And I get it that until Embiid proves it and does bring the Sixers to a conference finals or an NBA finals, the talk's not going to stop. It's not that I don't understand that part of it, because it's certainly warranted a little bit that he hasn't been able to reach that aspect and that milestone in his career. But it's also not entirely on him at all. Not like the coaching he's had has been spectacular with Brett Brown and Glenn Rivers. Now with Nick Nurse, I think that can change. And he certainly hasn't had, super teams over the last few years. But even when he has had good teams, it's the injuries every year. And I know people don't want to hear this. They want to say the injuries are an excuse. It's a cop-out. It's a bailout because he hasn't played well. And maybe he hasn't played quite up to his standard every year in the playoffs. But 2019, had knee tendonitis, and they lost on that insane, ridiculous Kawhi Leonard shot where they would go on in Toronto to win the championship. That was just, if he misses that shot, who knows what happens that year. 2020 was the bubble. The team was awful. Ben Simmons got hurt. You got swept, whatever. 2021, the Ben Simmons fiasco against the Hawks. Embiid also played with a torn meniscus. I don't want to revisit that year. That was a, obviously, franchise-altering year for this team. It really was. 2022, going against Miami after suffering an orbital fracture and concussion in the first round, comes back after missing the first two games against Miami, also has a thumb injury that he suffered against the Raptors in the first round. They lose to Miami. 2023 against the Celtics, comes in with a little bit of a knee sprain, and then obviously you blow games 6 and 7 when you had a chance to beat the Celtics in advance. And then this past season, had the meniscus and dealt with Bell's palsy, which people don't want to hear about, but it's a real thing, and it affected him in that series. So it's just been unfortunate he's had to deal with all this. And it's not entirely on him and on his play that he hasn't had this playoff success. But the thing I love about Joel Embiid year in and year out is, at the end of the day, he doesn't care what people have to say. And at the end of the day, maybe I shouldn't care what people have to say. Because Joel Embiid was booed at the Olympics and will continue to be booed by the fans over there in Paris because Joel Embiid decided supposedly not to play for Team France. Well, Joel Embiid doesn't care. A lot of people think it's hate. I see it as love and respect. If I wasn't an okay basketball player, I would not receive that type of treatment. So I see myself as being blessed. And that's why I interact with that type of crowd and that type of stuff. I've played in worse environments. It's nothing I haven't seen before. And he's absolutely right. Whether he's playing at TD Garden, at Madison Square Garden, or even at home in Philadelphia, he's going to hear the boos, and he's heard him over his whole career. It's nothing like what he's heard over at the Olympics. He's heard it all at this point. And of course they're going to boo. They want Embiid to play for France, which, you have Gobert and Wembanyama. It doesn't really matter. It is what it is. But I just love the way Embiid handles himself and handles this type of thing. To see him at the end of the game, egging the crowd on, holding the ball, cheering it, and then shooting that half-court shot was ridiculous. It's just who he is, and part of who he is also is going to be the slander he gets. I understand it, but I think some of the stuff we're getting to has just gone a little bit too far. Speaking of the Olympics, great to be the Olympics so far. A, B, C, D, or F. How do you think he's been in his first action playing international ball with all these other stars? I'd probably give him a B-, a C+. Certainly hasn't been great. Hasn't been awful. Definitely still some stuff to get used to. Coming up next, Nick Nurse did reveal some of his plans for the 76ers roster. How is the rotation going to work with the new big three? Some of the new additions as well. So we're going to get into that. But first, Paul George jerseys are available now. Go to chatsports.com/Paul George to get yours today through Fanatics. I just ordered my own Paul George jersey. They have the white. They have the blue. I decided to go with the white. I think it looks clean. Paul George, obviously going to be a big part of helping to get the Sixers team to a championship. And these jerseys are going to be going quick. The season will be here before you know it, and you're going to want to be dripped out in your Paul George jersey. So go get it right now. Again, chatsports.com/Paul George. I'm going to have that in the comments as well as the description of this video so you can go get your Paul George jersey today. All right, so let's get to it. Nick Nurse talked a little bit about this new 76ers roster, the way he envisions things working with Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, as well as some of these surrounding pieces. So let's get right into it. Nick Nurse talking about the big three. Joel and Tyrese are the bookends. That's obvious. And Paul slots right in the middle of that. I think that my mindset right now, most of my ideas are in pencil. I got some thoughts and things, but I really do think that we'll experiment and try a bunch of different things. I think that what we go into training camp running schematically, both sides of the ball, will take some twists and turns and evolve to where it gets to by the late end of the year. I just want to see how it looks and unfolds without trying to make it too narrow of a box that it would think that it's going to be. I want guys to read and make the right plays. And look, we know this. It's going to be a work in progress with these three. Whenever you add a superstar the level of Paul George into a team that's already has their reliable 1 and 2 in Maxey and Embiid, it's going to take some time, so I wouldn't be surprised if this team does get off to a little bit of a slower start, at least offensively, as they figure out the motions and everything they want to do and divvy up the offensive responsibilities as Paul George, finds his way onto the squad. One of the reasons, though, I think it could work a little bit faster than people might be anticipating is Paul George has said in his interviews and talking to media upon signing with Philadelphia that he is focused at this point in his career on playing the right way. He wants to be able to contribute in a meaningful way and do whatever it takes to win a championship. He wants to play the right brand of basketball. And I think Nick Nurse and the Sixers also want to play that correct brand of basketball with making the right reads and finding the open man. And Nick Nurse said, look, obviously Tyrese Maxey is going to handle a large part of the ball handling and playmaking responsibilities, but Paul George and Joel Embiid are going to have to do that as well. And I think Paul George is ready for that, and I think all three of these guys will be ready for that. Embiid's getting some experience with that over in Paris at the Olympics, so I think they're all really going to be ready to take this responsibility upon themselves to make sure that they are playing basketball the right way and ensuring that the three of them can coexist in a way that allows the team to succeed to its fullest capabilities. Nick Nurse continued a little bit talking about some of the role players on this roster. I think that a lot of the other moves were super critical. They were things that we think we needed to get done. Drummond backing up Joel. I think everybody understands that we need a good veteran guy that's a starter, because if we need him to play some games for 40 minutes, 38 minutes, or whatever it is, we got a guy that can do it and provide incredible presence around the basket. And just from Nick Nurse, it's clear to me a couple things. One, they place a huge priority on getting a high-level backup center, and they didn't believe Paul Reed was that high-level backup center. As much as I loved Paul Reed and, out the mud, b-ball Paul, and the potential I think he had and still has to this day, he's not that big, bruising center that's going to dominate around the paint. And as Nick Nurse said, that's clearly what they were looking for, and that's why I think Andre Drummond can have such a big impact and such a big presence on this team this upcoming year. Obviously, when you have a guy like Embiid, you're not normally looking for a backup at that position to play significant minutes, but I think he's going to be very, very impactful when he does play. And Nick Nurse has said that Joel Embiid's not going to play very many back-to-backs this year. He's probably not going to, even come close to that 65-game threshold, even if he is healthy all year. So expect to see a lot of Andre Drummond, and I expect him to be a major impact on this team. Nick Nurse also said that the young guys are going to get a lot of run, or at least get an opportunity to get a lot of run. Because Nick Nurse said the team will prioritize the health of their veterans. That includes Embiid. That includes Paul George as well. So some of the younger guys, like he specifically mentioned Ricky Council and Jared McCain, will absolutely be given chances to play. So I wasn't so sure if McCain was going to get an opportunity. Looks like he will. I did think Council will get a good shot, but it looks like there's going to be times this year where they might be thrust into maybe starting action or big minutes if one of Paul George, Joel Embiid, or both are sitting. But the season is quickly approaching here on 76ers Now. And if you're excited for the season and you're ready for the season to start, make sure you subscribe, hit that sub button so you can stay updated on all things going on with the 76ers. News, rumors, watch parties, analysis, recaps. We're going to have it all for you all season long. Hopefully throw a long postseason run as well. We're sitting just over 19,100 subs here on the channel. Can we get to 20K before the start of the season? That would be fantastic. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show. If you did, hit that thumbs up icon, like the video, and we'll see you next time here on 76ers Now.